Imagine being so rich, so powerful, that you don't trust anyone outside your own family with your fortune. Imagine marrying your own cousin, not for love, but for money, power, and legacy. This isn't a fantasy or a plot from a historical drama. It's the real-life strategy of one of the most mysterious and controversial families in history, the Rothschilds. Yes, you heard that right. The Rothschild dynasty, one of the wealthiest and most influential families the world has ever known, married their own cousins for generations, all to keep their billions locked inside their empire. And tonight, we're diving into how, why, and what it meant for them and the world. Who were the Rothschilds? To understand why cousin marriages mattered, let's start at the beginning. The Rothschilds weren't just any family. They were the financial titans of the 18th and 19th centuries. Founded by Meyer Amschel Rothschild in Frankfurt, Germany, this Jewish banking family rose from a small coin dealer business to becoming the bankers of kings, queens, and empires. Meyer had 5 sons, and instead of keeping them all in Frankfurt, he sent each to a major European capital: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt itself. This was a masterstroke, a financial empire spread across Europe, with brothers running synchronized operations like the ultimate family business. By the 19th century, the Rothschilds had financed wars, funded governments, influenced politics, and built railways. They were the bankers behind the curtains of history. But with great power came a great risk: outsiders marrying into the family and diluting their wealth. The cousin marriage strategy. Here's where things get shocking. Instead of marrying outsiders, the Rothschilds came up with a plan: marry your cousins. This wasn't unheard of among royal families. European monarchies did it for centuries to keep bloodlines pure. But the Rothschilds weren't royalty. They were bankers. And they weren't preserving bloodlines. They were preserving wealth. Meyer Amschel himself insisted on it. His will reportedly instructed his descendants to marry within the family whenever possible. Why? Because if you marry an outsider, half your fortune leaves the family. But if you marry a cousin, boom, the money stays in the circle. And they followed this strategy with laser focus. For nearly a century, over 60% of Rothschild marriages were between cousins. Real examples. Take Lionel de Rothschild, the famous British banker. He married his cousin Charlotte von Rothschild in 1836. Their marriage wasn't just a union of 2 people. It was a financial contract, binding together 2 branches of the dynasty. Another striking case, Baron James Mayer de Rothschild, head of the French branch, married his niece, Betty von Rothschild. Yes, his niece, and that was seen as perfectly acceptable within the family because it kept money tightly controlled. For outsiders, this was shocking, but for the Rothschilds, it was business as usual. Why did they do it? The strategy had 3 main goals: protecting wealth. At a time when fortunes could vanish in wars, revolutions, or bad investments, keeping money inside the family was a fortress-like strategy. Trust factor. Who can you trust more than family? For the Rothschilds, cousins weren't just relatives. They were bankers, business partners, and trustees of the empire. Legacy building. They weren't just thinking about their generation. They were planning centuries ahead. By marrying cousins, they ensured the dynasty didn't get diluted or divided into dozens of unrelated branches. It was like playing financial chess, but the game lasted generations. The consequences. But this strategy wasn't without costs. Let's be real. Cousin marriage comes with genetic risks. History shows that inbreeding can lead to health problems, and the Rothschilds weren't immune. Whispers circulated about health issues in some family members, though nothing on the scale of European royal families like the Habsburgs. Still, it's clear that keeping everything in the family had its downsides. Socially, it also made them more mysterious. Outsiders began to view the Rothschilds as secretive, even sinister. Their cousin marriages fueled conspiracy theories that they weren't just wealthy, but operating some hidden agenda. In short, the strategy worked financially, but at the cost of reputation and perhaps even health. Comparing to today's world, now, here's where it gets interesting. While marrying cousins isn't common today, the core idea still exists in modern billionaires' strategies. Think about it. Tech giants, billionaires, and political dynasties often marry people within their same elite circles. Jeff Bezos didn't marry a random person. He married a novelist from the world of intellectual elites. Elon Musk has dated and married women connected to Hollywood and high society. Even political families like the Kennedys, the Bushes, and the Clintons intermarry within powerful circles. Why? Because marrying within the circle keeps influence, wealth, and opportunity from leaking out. It's the same game the Rothschilds played, just without the cousins. In fact, you could argue that the Rothschild strategy laid the blueprint for billionaire dynasties today. The end of the cousin era. By the 20th century, the cousin marriage trend faded, even for the Rothschilds. Social norms changed, science revealed the genetic risks, and globalization made it easier to form alliances outside the family. But by then, the Rothschilds had already secured their empire. Their fortune and influence had spread so far that even marrying outsiders couldn't break it. They had done what Mayor Amschel intended, create a dynasty that would last for centuries. Why this story still matters. So, why does this matter today? Because the Rothschild cousin marriages reveal a powerful truth about how wealth and power are maintained. It's not just about making money, it's about keeping it. Most of us work to build savings, to pass something down to our children. But imagine doing that on a scale so massive, you control banks, governments, and industries. That's the Rothschild mindset. Their story forces us to ask, how far would you go to protect your family's legacy? Would you marry your cousin if it meant securing billions for your children and grandchildren? It's uncomfortable, but it's a question worth asking. The Rothschilds and conspiracy theories. Adding to the intrigue, the Rothschilds' cousin marriage tradition became fuel for countless conspiracy theories. Because they were already seen as a secretive, ultra-wealthy dynasty, the idea that they were closing ranks through marriage reinforced the narrative of a family plotting behind the scenes. Critics accused them of manipulating global events, from wars to market crashes, all while keeping outsiders locked out of their circle. In fact, by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, newspapers and political opponents often highlighted their intermarriages as evidence of their so-called global agenda. Of course, much of this was anti-Semitic propaganda, but it worked to paint the Rothschilds as puppet masters of world finance. Whether or not you believe the conspiracies, one thing is clear: their marriage strategy gave them an almost mythic reputation. Today, whenever people talk about hidden elites or families who run the world, the Rothschilds are always at the top of the list, and their cousin marriages remain a fascinating, controversial symbol of just how far they went to keep wealth and power under lock and key. Influence on marriage traditions of the wealthy. The Rothschild cousin marriages also influenced other wealthy families of the 19th century. Banking dynasties like the Oppenheims, the Warburgs, and even some aristocratic circles mirrored the practice of marrying within their ranks to safeguard fortunes. Though not always direct cousins, these unions were often arranged within a trusted circle. This highlights a broader pattern. When wealth becomes vast enough to reshape history, families often create rules, even unusual ones, to ensure that control never slips away. The Rothschilds didn't just play the game of wealth, they rewrote the rules. By marrying cousins, they turned their family tree into an unbreakable fortress of power. And whether you admire their strategy or find it unsettling, one thing is certain: it worked. Their story isn't just history, it's a mirror. Because even today, in boardrooms, private islands, and political dynasties, the Rothschild blueprint is alive and well. So next time you hear about billionaire families keeping everything in the circle, remember, it all started with the Rothschilds. If you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories of power, money, and influence.